Warning, playing FPL is highly addictive. It may cause stress, a loss of free time, a resentment towards friends or colleagues, and a dislike to football in general. Please, FPL responsibly.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Fixture Watch, the series that uses the official FPL fixture difficulty ratings to determine which teams have a good or bad run of fixtures over the next 5 game weeks. Before starting today, I'd like to quickly tell you about the Football Index, who have very kindly sponsored this video. The Football Index is the only platform that allows fans to become traders in a football stock market by buying and selling shares in players. So, just like fantasy football, you can use your knowledge to speculate which players will perform well in one game or throughout their career, and then make a profit by earning dividends if your players excel. Get started in building your portfolio by clicking the link in the description box below or downloading the app today. At the top of the FDR table from Gameweek 13 is in-form Leicester, with all of the Fox's next 5 fixtures having a difficulty rating of 2. Leicester face Brighton, Everton, Watford, Villa and Norwich in the next 5, an undoubtedly good run of fixtures which should only help them continue their fine run of form. This season, the Foxes currently boast the league's best defence, only conceding 8 goals in 12 games, and that's despite already playing the likes of United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham and Chelsea, a record not to be scoffed at. Meanwhile, some of their upcoming opponents like Everton, Norwich and Watford are some of the league's lowest scorers, therefore statistically clean sheets still look quite likely for Leicester in the short term. Understandably, Soyuncu, Chilwell and Pereira are all proving popular picks. But if you're looking for a differential, is Johnny Evans a shout at just 3% ownership? At just 0.2 million more, he's only a small step up from Soyuncu and has had more shots inside the box than any other Leicester defender, an interesting one to consider. In terms of their attacking options, not much needs to be said about Vardy, Maddison and Tielemans, all very shrewd options at the moment. The reason I like these 3 in particular is their guarantee of minutes for Leicester, because unlike Perez and Barnes, who are susceptible to getting subbed, these 3 regularly play the full 90, and that's always a bit more reassuring as an FPL manager. The team sitting second in the FDR table is Liverpool, who, having now come through a run of games against Leicester, United, Spurs and Man City, now have a much more appealing set of fixtures. The Reds face Crystal Palace, Brighton, Everton, Bournemouth and Watford in the next 5, 3 of which are at home. Similar to Leicester, their fixtures also look good from a defensive point of view, with Palace, Bournemouth and Watford in particular all struggling for goals recently. So, does this run finally justify the double up of their defenders again, with Robertson and Alexander-Arnold potentially a very strong pair for the next 5 game weeks? Also, given this kind run of upcoming fixtures, and with Man City misfiring of late, could the double up of Mo Salah and Sadio Mane now be on instead? Whether it's the double in midfield or in defence that you're going for, either should reap benefits over the next 5 game weeks. But do keep in mind that in Gameweek 18, Liverpool then travel to the Club World Championship and therefore don't have a fixture in that game week. Be sure not to forget this, because for Gameweek 18, your Liverpool players won't be available to get points. The next team with good fixtures in the next 5 game weeks is defensively solid Sheffield United, and it's their run after Wolves away in Gameweek 14 that looks particularly appealing from an FPL perspective. From Gameweek 15 onwards, the Blades face what looks to be a very nice run, as they play Newcastle, Norwich and Villa in consecutive games. Following those 3, they then play Brighton and Watford straight after, so this nice run continues right up until Gameweek 20. In the shorter term, they face United and Wolves next, on paper a trickier 2 fixtures. But it's worth noting that Man United are currently one of the league's lowest scorers away from home, only managing 5 goals in 6 away games. Therefore, a clean sheet could still very much be on the cards here, though they will be without their goalkeeper Dean Henderson when he faces his parent club, something to keep in mind. Sheffield United have been superb defensively so far this season. They've currently conceded just 9 goals in 12 games, the league's second best defensive record. This has resulted in them keeping the joint most clean sheets so far, level with Man City and Leicester on 5. I've spoken already about the defensive double-up of Liverpool's Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. However, when considering Sheffield United's superb defence and keeping their nice run of fixtures in mind, is the double-up from Sheffield United also now a viable option for a much cheaper price? The next team toward the top of the FDR table is the underperforming Arsenal, who have now failed to win in their last 4 games. Due to Arsenal's poor form recently, it's understandably seen many managers lose patience with Aubameyang. The Gabonese forward has now only produced 1 attacking return in the last 5 game weeks, and just as we feared, this has coincided directly with the return of Lacazette to the squad, which has pushed Aubameyang out wide and has made him far less effective. An important insight for any FPL manager. Because of Arsenal's poor form, it's a hard sell opting for any of their players currently. However, with Southampton, Norwich, Brighton and West Ham in the next 4 games, perhaps there is some justification in keeping Aubameyang if you do still have him in your squad. Especially when you consider that their next 2 opponents, Southampton and Norwich, currently have the league's worst defensive records, conceding a whopping 29 and 28 goals apiece so far this season. With that information, it does also make Lacazette an interesting differential at a minuscule 1.7% ownership. At Lacazette's price of 9.3 million, of course Jamie Vardy is the absolute no-brainer in this price bracket, but it's worth mentioning Lacazette if you are on the hunt for a low-owned differential. As we head back to the FDR table, another underperforming side, Southampton, also find themselves towards the top. Similar to Arsenal, any Southampton player isn't the most appealing at the moment. They're now 7 games without a win, scoring 6 and conceding 23 within that time, so avoiding their players completely is of course a sound plan. However, FPL is all about finding the next bandwagons before they happen. Therefore, if you do fancy the Saints to have a change of fortune soon, well, they certainly have a decent fixture list to do it. The Saints face Arsenal away, followed by Watford, Norwich, Newcastle and West Ham in the following 4 games. During their terrible run of form that I mentioned earlier, not winning in 7 games, their striker Danny Ings has still managed to maintain a respectable record, scoring 4 goals in his last 6. He netted in games against Everton, Chelsea and also away to Spurs and Wolves, making him the highest goal-scoring player at 6 million and below. With a difficulty rating of 14 in the next 5 game weeks, Wolves are a side that are really starting to hit some form recently and could be worth your consideration over the next few game weeks. Wolves are now unbeaten in their last 7 Premier League games, drawing 4 and winning 3. A very important stat to note within that run is that they've only conceded 5 goals in the last 7 games, making their defensive assets increasingly more appealing. Granted, they are without their centre-back Willy Bolly for now, and since his absence 3 game weeks ago, they haven't kept a clean sheet. But even so, the underlying stats suggest they've remained very tight at the back, conceding the least big chances of any team in the last 7 games. Also within that spell, Matt Doherty is the 2nd highest defender for shots inside the box, so even though he's an expensive 6 million, the way Wolves are playing at the moment, it looks like he can get returns at either end of the pitch. In terms of their attack, it's the reliable Raul Jimenez who looks to be a very sensible purchase. He's now bagged 3 goals and 2 assists in the last 5 game weeks, with only Pulisic, Mane and Vardy scoring more points than him in FPL over those games. Another team worth mentioning in this episode is Chelsea, who sit midway in the FDR table, but this is only because of their Gameweek 13 fixture away to Man City, which really pushes them down. Following their difficult trip to the Etihad, Chelsea then have some games that really could be worth targeting, because in their next 4 fixtures they face West Ham, Villa, Everton and Bournemouth, 3 of which are at home. In terms of their attack, as we know, there's an array of options to choose from, all budget friendly, with Abraham, Mount and now Pulisic all looking sensible choices for our sides, especially given the great run of fixtures following Man City. Understandably so, these 3 are proving very popular, but if it's a differential you're looking for, is the experienced Brazilian Willian also a shout into their attack? He's now started 8 games on the bounce for Chelsea and produced 42 points in the last 6 game weeks. Not bad for a player at just 3% ownership. That's 17 points more than Mason Mount in that spell, so he is going under the radar slightly. At the start of the season, Chelsea weren't a team that we looked to for clean sheets, with none in their opening 6 games. However, they have started to show improvements at the back recently, particularly in their home games, notably keeping clean sheets in each of their last 3 at Stamford Bridge. Therefore, with another 3 home games coming up in their next 5 against favourable opposition, the budget defender Tomori is looking an even more sensible option than he did already. So let's now move towards the bottom of the FDR table and see which teams have been rated as having a much more difficult run of games according to FPL. And if you enjoy the Fixture Watch series, be sure to drop a like on the video and get subscribed to FPL TV. Sitting at the very bottom of the FDR table from Gameweek 13 is Everton, who, after their game against Norwich, have a torrid run of fixtures to get through. It's because of their upcoming fixture against leaky Norwich that has some people considering a punt on the likes of Richarlison. And understandably so. The Brazilian has returned FPL points in 3 of the last 4 game weeks, and targeting those players who faced Norwich this season has been a decent strategy for the most part. Except when it came to Callum Wilson, of course. Notably, Norwich have now failed to score in 5 of their last 7 Premier League games. So could Gameweek 13 finally be the one that rewards those that kept patience with Luca Digne? If you are thinking to take a punt on an Everton player for this fixture though, just keep their upcoming run in mind, because after Norwich, the Toffees face Leicester and Liverpool in back-to-back away games, followed by Chelsea, United and Arsenal straight after. The next team towards the bottom of the FDR table is West Ham, who are this episode's team that have neither form nor fixtures on their side. The Hammers are now winless in 6 straight Premier League games, drawing 2 and losing 4. What makes this worse is that this torrid run of form actually came through a spell of decent looking fixtures, where they faced the likes of Bournemouth, Palace, Newcastle and Burnley. So now, heading into what looks to be a much more difficult set of fixtures, it's difficult to see the Hammers really turning things around in the short term. The biggest catalyst for West Ham's downturn in form was the loss of their key man between the sticks, Lukas Fabianski, because before his injury they actually kept 3 clean sheets on the bounce. So it's safe to say that without him, it's probably wise to steer clear of their defence completely, having now conceded 13 goals in their last 6 games. Their Gameweek 13 fixture at home to Tottenham is normally one that West Ham do get themselves up for, so perhaps a chance for them to change their fortunes in Gameweek 13. However, no matter what the result in this London derby, it's likely West Ham players will remain off our radars for the next few game weeks when considering their tough upcoming fixtures. The last team towards the bottom of the FDR table, with a difficulty rating of 17, is champions Manchester City. Now, Man City, a lot like Liverpool, are what we consider fixture-proof in FPL, meaning with those 2 teams it doesn't often matter who they face. However, it is worth keeping their more difficult run of fixtures in mind now, because with Chelsea, Liverpool and Leicester's fixtures arguably more favourable, it begs the question of whether we can get better value for our money over De Bruyne or Sterling in this run. Normally, when we pay a premium 12 million for a player like Raheem Sterling, it's because we want the luxury and the security of having a strong captain. So, with Sterling proving unreliable so far this season, what you need to ask yourself now is, are you going to captain him through these games or not? Answering that question may help you identify if it's worth you keeping or selling him for these games. What I would say though is that the FDR ratings have been a bit deceiving so far this season, and that's due to this year's Premier League simply being very unpredictable. So even though City find themselves towards the bottom of the FDR table, are their fixtures really as bad as they seem? Their next opponents, Chelsea, have been suspect defensively away from home this season, and let's face it, Man United and Arsenal simply shouldn't be rated as a 4 based on current form. But of course that's just my opinion. With me owning both Sterling and De Bruyne at the moment, my plan is to keep the pair of them for their home fixture against Chelsea and then assess from there. If they perform well, I'm happy enough to keep them for Newcastle away. But another poor performance in Gameweek 13 and a switch over to Sadio Mane, Pulisic or a Leicester midfielder could also be on the cards. Of course, that's just my personal plan, and how you proceed is completely down to you. So that wraps up this episode of the Fixture Watch. Hopefully you found it insightful, and if so, be sure to drop a like on the video and most importantly get subscribed to FPL TV. You can also hit the notification bell so you never miss an FPL TV upload. I'll be back very soon with more content for Gameweek 13, so until then, FPL responsibly and try to enjoy the rest of the international break.